Welcome everyone to the show that's hotter than a freshly brewed cup of coffee and bolder than Buckaroo Banzai, boozing at a backyard barbecue. This is the Common Ground Radio Show, where finding common ground is our mission, but having a good old time is our specialty. Join your hosts, Big Al and Zapper, as they dive into the swirling vortex of topics that can either make or break friendships. From politics to pop culture, they'll explore it all. So, whether you're a liberal or conservative, a carnivore or vegan, prefer crunchy peanut butter over smooth, all y'all are welcomed here. Because diversity isn't just a buzzword, it's the spice of life. Get ready to have your worldview shaken, stirred, and served with a side of gut-wrenching laughter. The Common Ground Radio Show starts now.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Common Ground Radio Show. This is the Zapper in the house. Today it is Wednesday, the 3rd of April, 2024. Really wet down here in the low country, so if you're in the same listening area, I hope you're staying dry. We got Big Al and Zapper in the virtual studio today, coming to you live from the heart of the low country, Bluffton, South Carolina. I couldn't get out of the gate, Al. I don't know what was going on. It was crazy. What's going on, big brother?
Just you, man. It's a pleasure to be here. Welcome, everyone, to Common Ground Radio. And that's what we're doing. I'm kind of all drenched and wet from bringing in all my Transvision decorations. Visionary day. I put them up as fast as I could when our glorious leader, Herr Biden.
Biden. Oh, I see you doing the Sieg Heil salute. Yeah, there you go.
Well,
put that arm down.
Left-handed, so I don't want to give the wrong impression to my neighbors.
Right.
But I did bring in all those transvisionary decorations. I'm celebrating, as I'm sure all of America and the world is. Coincidental, what don't you think, on the day of resurrection? This
oh, man, I'm telling you what.
Godliness is stepped forward. I mean, now it's unabashed, unashamed.
Yeah, for
Let's
sure.
move forward, with the agenda of darkness. It's to me,
beyond
it was
understanding.
Really
yeah, it's crazy.
The last straw. I mean, what are you going to do? I mean, what's next? What is next? Nothing surprises me with this cat.
Nothing surprises me anymore. I think it's just this topsy-turvy world. We're totally upside down. It's absolutely crazy. And I think it's going to be that way. In fact, I was sharing with family this weekend. We were out of town visiting my daughter down in Florida where she goes to school anyway. Long story short, and I was like, the more I think about it, whatever some big event is going to happen, that's my, greatest fear right now is I don't know if we're going to make it to the election. Meanwhile, we keep pressing on with all the other nonsense we have to press through with all this craziness in the world. So,
hey, listen, we wait patiently on the Lord. That's all.
That's all we can do.
And we raise these people up that are living in darkness in prayer, and that's the best we can do. I don't hate these people. Don't get me wrong. They are lost in the forest of darkness.
Yeah, they
are. And I think our duty is just to pray for their salvation. I mean, I don't want to get too deep into the election or justifications of that. God, but
I'm with you 100%. I think, especially those of us that just came off the celebration of Resurrection Sunday. It must be the microphone today. So I'm having a hard time talking. The remembrance of what Jesus has done for us, and that we live in a fallen, broken world, and that there's only one Savior. It's not a political leader. We're not going to live in utopian this side of heaven. And the unfortunate reality, as you said, we keep pressing on. We point others to Jesus. We love our neighbors as ourselves. We make disciples. We go into all the world and preach the gospel, the good news, because that really is what's needed today. And so that's all we can do, brother. Meanwhile, you and I have been called to try to speak the truth in the public forum. The Common Ground Radio Show is just that. Before we get too deep into the deep dive here, please do us a favor. Make sure that you're sharing this content with your family and friends. Now live streaming, our main platform is Rumble. It's on the jeffzappshow.com website. You can go there, see our archives. Download the stream to your podcast, whatever you listen to, whatever platform, and you can send us any questions or comments directly to me, and I'll make sure Al and I have a chance to look over it and respond. Jeff at the jeffzappshow.com. So you can throw in your comments, live streaming on Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube today. Check out Rumble Rants, which is the live chat as well. Always live streaming. We're not going to put the call-in number up today because last few times we haven't taken anything. So let's see what type of comments that you have for today's show. And with that, I'm going to give it back to you, Al.
Yeah, let's just, a couple of stories from the international, aside from the Middle East. I don't know, it's kind of closer to home, folks. This complete breakdown of Haiti with now the militant terror groups are really at work because there is no rule of law there anymore. The U.S. has started negotiations with the head of this terrorist group. I don't get that. Meanwhile, the murder prevails in the streets of Haiti, Port-au-Prince, etc. Cruise ships are now pulling out of the island stopovers. Well, common sense would prevail there. But and Cuba is another country that is absolutely in the depths of oppression by its tyrannical government over there. They're virtually in a police state that continues. The economy over there is in full collapse. Most of the international flights have stopped going to Havana. They're flying their own airplanes to South America, etc. But there's not the trunk carriers from democratic countries have pretty much stopped. And who's coming to the rescue of the Cuban people as well as the Haitian people? Well, it's certainly not the United States of America. Have done basically nothing. The person who is offering a lifeline to them is none other than Elon Musk with Starlink. He's actually allowing people to use that free and to communicate with the outside world, get information that they can use to survive. But, the real question is, why isn't this administration doing anything for these people? But we're stopping the clock for transgender visionary days. We're putting the brakes on law and order at the southern border. Whose priority are we dealing with here? We're certainly not dealing with the interest of the United States or those. You talk about marginalized people, they live in Cuba and in Haiti. Now, some may say that the Haitian government has brought it upon itself because they're not the picture of democracy by any stretch of the imagination. But, what was that guy's name? Papa Doc. He used to just eliminate people that looked at him wrong. But right now they're in absolute crisis. They have no food and very little water, and they're under the gun of these gangs, these militant gangs they're like they do in L.A., Chicago. They run their neighborhoods, and if you don't belong, you get shot. So the point I'm trying to make is that we have Elon Musk is stepping up and saying, "Listen, folks, use the Starlink. Here's the codes. Here's everything you need," and they're absolutely being allowed to get word from and communicate with the outside world. Hopefully, somebody listens to them. As far as Cuba goes, I did some research here. This Manuel Roca, who held a sensitive security position profile in both the Clinton and Obama administration, has been dealing the bidding of Cuba for over 3 decades. This guy's been allowed to have intelligence that we have gathered and shared it with the Cuban Communist government. So, well done there, Mr. Musk, providing a platform for free speech and information. It's unbelievable. The protests are still going on over there in Havana and all the small cities over there. So I don't know what this. We look at our administration. We have these people still chasing Trump in court. They don't care that our children are being endangered, and they're empowering sex traffickers in this country. That's their priority. Freedom really doesn't have anything to do with it. It's all about control, as we talked about before. What do you think?
I think it's gone haywire. South Carolina, the treasurer found $1.8 billion in an account. Nobody knows what's going on. We're not talking like I found a couple $100,000. $1.8 billion. Meanwhile, all this other nonsense. We keep sending money over to Ukraine for some reason. I don't know why. But hey, let's just keep on keeping on. Come on, man. There's nothing wrong. Everything's fine.
It's no joke.
It's no joke. It's no joke.
No joke. This isn't hyperbole.
Yeah.
This is a real deal.
It's a real deal. Big Al and Jeff were threats to democracy. trying to tell people, ringing the bell still. I don't know, man. It seems like it gets quackier, crazier every single day, man. I'm looking at 3 different news sites to see what's the latest is, because I really don't read the news all that much. But in some of these breaking stories, I mean, last week we had the bridge, up in Maryland. And are you still trying to figure out what really is going on? We're not getting the full story like every other newsworthy item. You have some people that say the ship had engine issues. It was a cyber attack. It was hacked or something. That there was something else at play on the bridge. There, people said that there were. You saw the barge hit the main strut, and then there were some other pieces on the other side that something was going on there. I don't know what to make of it anymore. I guess maybe if that's what their mission is, to really just throw us into a frenzy. But I'm just amazed at all these news stories that come out where we see more and more, whether it's like you were just talking about, in our backyard, if you will, to the nonstop flow of illegals across the southern border, to the exportation, all of our funds, taxpayer funds, that just go to all these foreign countries, whether it's Middle East or Ukraine, some other hotspot around the world. Meanwhile, our own infrastructure, our own airplanes, Boeing, boy, don't fly in a Boeing. My goodness, it seems like it's more and more of those things are having issues. And so I don't know if everyone else is kind of feeling the same agony or pain or frustration of trying to figure out, man, what in the heck is going on? Everything seems to be the bottom seems to be falling out. And I don't know.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's the I just had a thought. I just left me here. I mean, the fact that remember the border when all those illegal immigrants bum rushed the border with the National Guard there? They basically charged the gate like it was some kind of soccer.
Yes, I did see that, and then they kind of ran.
Just bowled over these guys and hurt a couple of them. I mean,
right.
But it was, it was just a frenzied mass attack. Well, they collected as many as they could. It was like picking up jacks, trying to all over the floor, trying to pick these people up and throw them into a jail or detention farm so they could sort them out and ship them back, allegedly. Well, guess what? A federal judge just let them all go. Every one of them.
Oh, my goodness.
We'll call you when we want to talk to you in 7 or 8 years from now.
We'll send you a text.
Yeah. We'll give you a phone. And where would you like to go? Would you like to go to Seattle? No, it rains too much. Oh, that's okay. How about Miami? No, well, you're not going to be able to get in there unless you walk or take a bus. No more flying in there. But I mean, it's absolutely insane. Look, we're not asking for like we want to control everything. I don't want to control everything. I just want to have a normal situation. We have laws on the books for immigration. This is a contrived effort, I think, in my mind. I'm sure that eventually some junior G-man is going to show up at my door and say, "Did you say this?" And the battle begins. It's still ensuing, folks. I mean, if you think that free speech is just something that we'll always have, think again. I mean, they're making moves on us right and left and center. I mean, it's very subtle, but it's happening. I mean, like you mentioned earlier, Jeff, when we had Talk One Radio on YouTube, it didn't take them long to completely fillet us and, wrap us up, button us up, and kick us off.
Yeah.
I got the letter that says you'll never be seen again type of thing.
Quit spreading your disinformation.
Right. I was like, what?
Oh, man.
I mean, half the things that we talk about are coming out of the news media. And then what we do is it's like a cake. Then we put our frosting on it with our opinions. We're allowed to do that. It's free speech. I'm not inciting anyone to do anything. Like we always said, we're not inciting violence. That's not the answer. I don't even know if the politicians writing your politician is worthwhile today. They're controlled by people that pay their reelection bid. So,
well, yeah, or keep them right where they want them. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any action from these people. There's a lot of talk, but has anything really changed? It just seems like the same rigmarole. We kick the can down the road. Same thing, same characters, same bat time, same bat channel. It doesn't change, and that's what's so frustrating, I think, for many of us, as you mentioned, whether it's freedom of speech or First Amendment rights, a Bill of Rights for that matter, and we continue to just, go headlong right into this disaster that we're seeing. I mean, I don't know what to do at this point. What can you do other than pray and stand your ground and do what's right and continue to try to raise your family and put food on the table and pay your bills and all that other stuff? But I mean, I hate to be so pessimistic today. Maybe it's just the rain, but I do sometimes look at some of these news articles and I'm thinking, okay, so they're setting up a Palestinian, what do they call it? Like a CHOP, autonomous zone for Palestine, set up in New York City. And again, make sure that those listeners don't misunderstand what I'm saying here. I have mentioned in past broadcasts that I think the easiest way for those that are in control, and what I mean by in control, I'm saying the very wealthy elitists that have for a very long time been pushing an agenda to try to divide civilization into a two-camp system, because it's easy to divide and conquer when we're vilifying the other side. So it's Democrat versus Republican, okay? Liberal versus conservative. It's communist versus capitalist. All right, then that's easy to just point fingers at other people. But when we start to look at the underlying issues politically, especially here in this nation, where from the federal all the way down to the local, I believe that there's been such an infiltration into these positions of power, if you will, that these folks they're like on the red line, their RPMs, and they're just full throttle, spinning their wheels, not getting much stuff done, while we're bamboozled, propagandized from the corporate media structure, the mainstream media, even into social media. I was reading an article earlier today on this. Google is completely out of control. This is PJ Media, so if you're wondering, they're a conglomerate. They put together, I think, Town Hall, Red State, PJ Media, Hot Air, some of the other publications that they do. And it's basically, it says, a little definitional housekeeping by being demonetized. We mean that any article smeared by the fickle Google gods with this black mark of shame, is no longer eligible to host Google ads. And so they go through basically some flags of 109 PJ Media articles and the date they were flagged back from like August of 23 through March of 24. And again, folks, it's all based on trying to, silence anything that goes contrary to the propaganda that's being pushed. So it's at some point, where do you go? All right, like you said, I'm not trying to incite anything. I'm just trying to speak the truth as best as we know it, as I know it. And we're still silenced for that. And I think it's going to continue to get worse, especially now where we're starting to see AI take over pretty much everything. Al and I were, deplatformed just for trying to speak the truth. It's not like we had hundreds of millions of listeners, folks.
Right, we wish.
And, the neat thing, I said not neat thing, but they use the technology that's like, right now on Facebook, you can go and listen or watch. They automatically translate the audio into the captions. If you've ever watched that, I'm not doing that, nor have I selected anything. So if you know how, dangerous, how powerful this AI technology is, some of the fake stuff that you'll see and people that or, they're, oh yeah, that's a really cool photo of this person doing a swan dive off of the Eiffel Tower or whatever. And what I'm saying is whether it's Photoshop, CGI, some of these deep fakes, some of these things that are happening, it's really hard to decipher the truth from the false lies that are being propagated. So let's be careful out there, but just be cautious. Don't always try to see things as the way that it's being portrayed or presented to you. And I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying whether it's a news story that first came out, I always say let it settle for a couple of days. That was the same thing with this, the mass casualty event that happened, last week, this cargo ship, right? And that whole bridge that collapsed in the river there, the Beltway Bridge. So I don't know, and I'm still just scratching my head trying to figure this all out, honestly, and I'm wondering what our listeners are thinking too, if they're just so tired of what they see, the lack of action from political standpoint, from our legislators, and we just keep talking about the same old things, not securing our borders, money going out of the country. When does it end?
Right. Well, it's not like conservatives or Republicans have they're not lily white here, folks, in this deal. Idiocy crosses both sides of the aisle. On common ground on this radio station, believe me, even though we talk like conservatives, I'd be willing to listen to anybody from the left that can last more than 30 seconds without calling me a name. I mean, because we've experienced that on Talk One, the same deal, where people will, they won't come on the air with you, but what they will do is they'll blast you on an email or on a Facebook comment and then run for the hills. I mean, so what we want to do here is try to bridge that communications gap. We have definite feelings about this country. We love the country. We love God. We want to see everyone prosper, regardless of what their race may be. I don't care about that. If you got the chops, you earn your way, you deserve everything you get. But now everything's being boiled off the bone to be this. We're going to select by race. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. It's crazy. Do I have all the answers for that? No, I don't. But I can tell you this, that God has officially left the White House. I mean, there's no more trying to, paint it up to look like something that it's not. They are blatantly just coming after Christianity. And until people get their mind around that, it's stop. You lose your license to be surprised, as far as I'm concerned. If you can't see what's happening in this country, as far as how Christians are being maltreated. I mentioned earlier about the federal judge that let all those rioters go, the illegal immigrants. They just let them go. I mean, they got, what do they call it? Verbal bond. I guess that it's no cause bail. That's what they call it nowadays. No cause bail. But I'll tell you, at the same deal, there's a group of Christians in Tennessee who peacefully sang church hymns outside of an abortion clinic. They're all in court today with all types of charges, some federal charges. Now, what do you think that? Do you think that's a little lopsided? I do. I mean, it's crazy.
No doubt in my mind. And that's, my own theory about all this is it's easier for a movement to tyrannical rule anytime that you remove any type of morality, especially faith in Christianity. I'm specifically saying with that, but don't misinterpret me if you're a Muslim or you're a Hindu or Buddhist. Ultimately, these people that want to move to a tyrannical dictatorship or, ruled by a few elite people, communism's always been godless. I mean, it's all relying on the state, which is your God, little g, for basically everything that you need. And that's not what this country or how it was founded. And we have kind of fallen off the cliff in terms of this moral depravity. We're a depraved society, and it's unfortunate, but I think for, Edmund Burke, for evil to flourish, it's for good men and women to do nothing. We have to keep, as you mentioned earlier, pressing on. God's the one still in charge, regardless of how, quote, godless we've become as a country. He's still overseeing everything that happens to each and every one of us on the face of this earth. So at some point, I'm going to try to do and continue to do what's right. And those that are listening, it is easy. I get it. It's easy to kind of be quick to judge or sarcastic based on, the current state of affairs and everything that's happening. But I think we just got to hang in there. I mean, what's the alternative? Not that I'm going to try to check out anytime soon, but it is aggravating to have to see some of these things as they continue to attack us. And I believe those attacks are going to increase in intensity and with, their fervent admonition to basically get rid of us. We're already a post-Christian society here in the United States. I mean, I know there's still a lot of Christians out there, but the reality that locomotive has long since left the station.
Yeah, that's a fact. I think it's when you take everything as a whole, like take a look at how this grooming and promotion of sex changes and everything in this society, the flood of genocidal drugs into this country through the southern border and other ways. Fentanyl. Now there's a new one that's out that's even worse than that. That all floods into our society. If you want to look at something that make you sick, other than San Francisco and Seattle, take a look at Philadelphia and just type in Kensington Road in Philly. It's just strewn with the shells of what's left of human life after the drug addiction is completely decimated that whole area. That's where they go to congregate. That's where the needles are handed out by the local government. I mean, this, it's not about overpopulation. It's about depopulation. Just look to your friend Bill Gates, you don't hear too much about him anymore, but he is still operating big time in the back. The indoctrination of children to hate God, to absolutely. I mean, they're just recently with the LSU game against Iowa, the women's NCAA women's basketball Final Four game. LSU players left the floor before the national anthem was played. And the coach made all kinds of wild excuses for them being, not available for that. But it's just a symptom of the sickness. And now we're reaching down into the young kids in kindergarten through fourth grade, talking about gender identification and blossoming in any way that you want. And then after the fourth grade, they start going into the libraries and they're being introduced to these pornographic novels that are supposed to be enlightening for these people, for kids. Come on. I mean, my compromise would be to have a section like that for ninth grade and above, because by that time you already know which end of the stick to hold, so to speak.
Yeah.
But to indoctrinate young kids and have drag queen story time, and there's a documentary out. If I had the ability to share that with you, I would. I'm sorry, I don't have the information right at my hands, so I don't want to make something up, but it was done by an advocate to get these books out of our libraries and high schools. But it's the big picture like that, folks. Our children are our future. They're the next generation that's going to be coming through the pipeline when we're gone. When we're long gone, what are they going to be left with? I mean, nobody's joining the service anymore. I wouldn't want to join the service. I told my grandson, bag it. Don't worry about joining the service, because they're all woke too. They're DEI and all this other stuff. I mean, you're going to steel yourself up, folks, for this next round of spiritual battle, because it's going to be rougher than you ever thought it was.
Yeah, and it's depressing if you just look at all the negative stuff. I mean, it is overwhelmingly bad. Let's just face it, call it for what it is.
Sure.
But as I mentioned earlier, God's still in charge, and we're still morally accountable and held responsible to Him alone. And I'm not getting into a sermon here. I'm just saying it's still our responsibility as believers in Christ, individually, to do what's right. And people have been blinded by, like I said, primarily the propaganda that's been spewed for so long. Like you said, the military. I was having a conversation about that this past weekend, of how it used to be kind of a nice opportunity to go serve your country. And we're both veterans, those out there. But, I mean, when you look just within the past 25, 30 years of all the campaigns and skirmishes we've been involved with, and 20 years in Afghanistan and Iraq, and was it worth it? I mean, I know during Vietnam and even World War II, World War I, I go back and I look at it, the more that I study these things, who benefited? We lost a lot of young men and women as a result of those battles. And so I don't know how the recruiting stations are doing, because I can't see a line of, Generation Z outside the door, let's go into this new woke military. I've been talking to a lot of the Gen Zs. Interestingly enough, they see the fake BS for what it is. Everything that you just mentioned, from the push of the transgender to identity of what it is, furry or whatever you identify as, they see it clearly as a bunch of hogwash. Most importantly, they see social media, the tool that's been leveraged to try to program them, and maybe deprogram them in a way, to keep them coming over to the side that says, It's fine. Just do it, whatever, And that pressure is tremendous. If you have kids that are, in their early 20s or late teens that are now trying to navigate this myriad of social media pressure, of the peer pressure is what we used to call it. But it's nonstop, and these folks are on their phones constantly, constant communication. And I think it's unfortunate because, well, I won't just say just unfortunate. It's one of those things that perhaps might be a revolt, might be an opportunity to finally push back and say enough is enough. And I love to see that some of these younger young men and women are starting to figure that out. And that's a little glimmer of hope for me as I start to get a little bit more white in the hair and the beard and everything else. And I'm sure that for those of us that know how this ends, we just keep walking it out, doing our best, and, helping those that we can help, especially those in our own, say, circle of friendship, our neighborhoods and our communities. God wins. He already won. He conquered it. So I was looking up that while you were talking, Al, I went to this neighborhood, this Kensington, Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. This is an article from last August, and it says drug users fled the streets of this lawless Philadelphia neighborhood. I had never heard of this till you just mentioned it. That's why I'm grateful that you and I get a chance to broadcast together. This was on a Fox News article. Oh, my goodness. This is atrocious.
Yeah, you can go to YouTube and watch it live. There are guys that just cruise up and down Kensington with their phone out the window. It's like, it looks like,
it's worse than a third world country.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's people that are, unalive on the sidewalk there. There's people at different stages of death, really.
Yeah. This guy here, this article talks about he has multiple tranquilizer induced flesh wounds. It's very graphic here. Different types of basically levels of these people are dying, man. Yeah, it says I've lost good friends. This lady says people are just dying all around, and it just looks like a slice out of hell, living hell.
There you go. It looks like Night of the Living Dead or something like that.
Yeah, that's crazy. And so more and more things, like you said, it doesn't have to be what you said, like L.A. or Portland, Seattle, Chicago, parts of New York. It's starting to overtake more and more of these cities. And we've said before, I think it's coming soon to a neighborhood near you. Where do you think all these illegals are going? What happens when there is a major, they're saying we got the solar eclipse coming, Monday or something, the 8th or something like that. They always kind of hint that there could be some catastrophic failure. Solar flare is going to cause EMP and we lose electricity or communications or what have you. That's my biggest fear, man, is once we go down as a power grid or something, especially here in the South when it's hotter than what, watch out.
Well, in the intelligence world, it's called a dangle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do. Just before we leave this, the agenda of the secular teachers and the teachers unions, I read this, I searched out this research when I was really hot on these books, inappropriate books.
Yeah.
And this Richard Rotree is a big left-wing writer. I'll just leave it at that. And he writes with the secular agenda, the fundamentalists, he's talking about the parents now, the fundamentalist parents of our fundamentalist students think that the entire American liberal establishment is engaged in a conspiracy. The parents have a point. We do our best to convince these students of the benefits of secularization. So we are going to continue trying to discredit you in the eyes of your children, trying to strip your fundamentalist religious community of dignity, trying to make your views seem rather silly than discussable. There's another humanist, John Dunphy. He's pretty famous. He says this: I am convinced that the battle for humankind's future must be waged and won in the public school classroom by teachers who correctly view their role as prophetizers of a new faith. So there you have it, folks. If you're not convinced that your kids are getting indoctrinated, it's right there. They are not afraid or ashamed to wear it on their sleeve and, be proud. Be proud that they're separating your sons and daughters from your family unit. And they'll do anything that they can do to diminish your role.
Well, you hit it on the head there. I think I wanted to address this too, because I think you said, they're proud to wear it. I think pride being one of the 7 deadly sins, but pride, when you are puffed up, God hates that, number one. But when I look at academia across this United States, those of us that have gone to college or postgraduate level work, that those that are in academia typically lean to the left. And this isn't an attack. I'm kind of laughing because, I started in the late 80s, early 90s when I went off to Kent State. And if anybody is familiar with Kent State, that's liberal politics. But I went for aerospace there, my undergrad. And there were a lot of professors that you could tell. And even back then, I've been conservative pretty much most of my life. I didn't really start to dig into it until I was my teens. I remember going to the library and figuring out what the difference was. Remember, you have to look up encyclopedias, those that are a little bit younger. Yeah, you actually went to the library and you looked up the Funk and Wagnalls or the Encyclopedia Britannica. Remember those days, Al?
Absolutely.
And so I sat there and I had looked up, what the difference, the Democrat Party versus the Republican Party. I remember specifically. I said, well, I guess my views tend to be a little bit more towards Republicans, so I guess I'll register as a Republican. So that was in 1988, if you're wondering. Anyway, fast forward through the college experience. Many of you out there that are in college right now recognize that these professors, instructors, depending on their degree, again, whether they're on a tenure track and so forth, and they're in their social circles, and they proselytize all this bull crap nonsense. I'm going to be careful not to mention names, but I have some examples that was recently brought to my attention. And I listened to this particular individual talking on geopolitical issues. And this was nothing more than someone with TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome. This person is teaching a college-level course, pretty much just putting out their propaganda. None of it was... It was all insinuated that Trump was the biggest, he was the big devil, right? That he was the problem. And I'm sure that many of you that are currently going through graduate level or undergraduate level work can point out a particular professor or group of professors that push the same old nonsense, whether it's this transgenderism or something so immoral and so improper for, conduct in a civil society. But that's what has been happening for a very, very long time. This didn't happen overnight. And I do lean back to what I mentioned earlier. The younger Gen Z seem to have it figured out. A lot of it, it's a bunch of BS, man. And that's the way that I feel about it. But it's like people have decided to hitch their wagons to whatever that they feel that, that makes sense to me. And they will stand their ground. And they will die on that hill, regardless if the truth, comes by and slaps them upside the head. They're not going to change. And that's why I think you mentioned this earlier, too. That this is a spiritual battle, man. We're like spiritual warfare one-on-one. And willingly or unwillingly, if you don't know anything about Christ, you're on the losing side. And I'm not being facetious here, folks. This is what we just celebrated. This is what it's all about. It truly is a spiritual battle, and it is dark out, but that's when one light can make all the difference in the world, right? Because the darkness can't overcome the light. And the light is already coming to the world, folks. And he's coming back. Don't you think?
Yeah, with bells on. I mean, Lord, please come quick, because, it's going to get worse before it gets better, folks. You might as well just, steel yourself up for that. This prosecution of Christians is going to make the Romans look like tiddlywinks and a simple game. So,
and I think even within the church, meaning I say the body, but I'm specifically more for wherever you go to your local congregation, your body of believers that gather. If you don't think that they haven't infiltrated, listen, if you believe that the government is straight up 100% always looking out for your best interest, you might as well go ahead and turn off this broadcast and keep moving on, or put your head back in the sand. But if you think, if you're starting to think that maybe 70% of what they tell me is the truth, you might as well, again, stick your head back in the sand, because most of these intelligence agencies and our federal government, George Carlin said it a long time ago, they don't care about you and me. There's an appearance that it looks like, but they're brokering a deal that basically the U.S. taxpayers burden everything. And these bankers, that's where the root of all evil is. It's those that are coining or minting the currency. And we basically have thrown away. The Federal Reserve is not federal. It's not reserve. It's nothing more than a cabal of private bankers.
It's a private institution. People think it's a governmental institution.
Yeah. And so that's where it starts. Ron Paul talked about auditing the Fed. But have you noticed that, like, all of the nobody stands up to these punks? I'll just use that term, the phrase. These punks, they don't care. They're probably like in high school, the guy in the glasses. I'm going to portray something here that I probably shouldn't, but it's the kind of the nerdy person. The jock is the one getting all the ladies, and I know I'm probably being chauvinistic, but they're the ones that they're not going to come straight at you. They're going to figure out a dubious way to come at you and take you out. So that's these people. And the Federal Reserve, folks, it's not federal, it's not reserve. And we've really sold the soul of our nation, because what is the lender is slave. If I can figure it out, the debtor is a slave to the lender. And these people, if you go to our national debt clock, I mean, we're almost at 35 trillion. You can't even comprehend how many zeros, trillion, or comprehend how much money that is. As I said earlier in the broadcast, here in South Carolina, there was a local news story where they found $1.8 billion, I think, is the Secretary of Treasury, Curtis Loftus. $1.8 billion. That's a lot of money.
Where is it?
Stuck in an account.
Yeah, where is it?
Sitting in a bank account, said the state treasurer, as he lost control of the Treasury. So my theory here is all this is playing out in a way that hopefully, if you don't have your head in the sand, you're starting to take note that, number one, if they're with a government agency, are there good people in some of these bad agencies? Sure. Because let's face it, many times it's not necessarily the worker bees. It's the ones that are controlling, directing those that are underlings. And they're just going, go along to get along. We all know that. I know it. I've done it before. But when you stop and look at this dubious plan, it's got the makings of, wow, they're driving us right off a cliff. I mean, how long do you have to look at, like, again, beating the same drum, our southern border, to realize we just can't continue to proceed down this path? It's a dead end. At some point, this country is just going to implode. And the same thing goes with the national debt. So these lenders, these private banks, they don't care about you or me. And they're control of the monetary policy, by the way. So where does that leave us? A bunch of slaves, like chattel. That's what we are. Yeah, slaves to the IRS. Right. So let me send them another check so they can send it over somewhere else.
Just talking about, you said be careful who you associate with, even in your local churches.
Yeah.
that reminds me of the FBI out of the Richmond field office that, we have written record and notice of this, that they were instructing their agents to befriend priests in the Catholic Church, get confidential informants, CIs within the church, to basically spy on the Catholic Church to see where, if there's any subversive extremists involved. Now, if that, of course, the director Ray ran right to the front of the class with his written note to the Richmond office saying, "We cancel that. We cancel that. That we once we discovered it, that doesn't happen." Now, I'm like, okay, sure. This is, one example of them maybe self-exposing their underbelly for a demonstration. This is a pony show. Oh yeah, we corrected that. It's not happening anywhere else, folks. But that is the question now, is it?
Well, history repeats itself. I mean, the question always comes up when you're talking about history, especially like Nazi Germany. Well, how did those people that they just went along when they were rounding up the Jews and sent them off? And right. and you said, they infiltrated. So as Christians, they wanted to basically get rid of anything that was a faith. You can't have faith in a godless, communist, fascist, socialist system. Again, the state, the head of the state, that's the God, a lowercase g. So yeah. They're very familiar with how to do it. When I say they, well, you can call them whatever you want. The syndicate, the cabal, the deep state. These folks, whether they know it or not, follow the devil, Satan, Lucifer. Their whole system is predicated, and Baphomet and all this stuff. It's all predicated on this, transgender ideology that it degrades women and the family and pornography. It's all based in Satanism, and you may think that's, oh my goodness, this guy's far-reaching. No, they use it. The dark magic, all of the psychological operations, the deep one, the ideological subversion. That, as I mentioned before, Yuri Bezmenov talked about that back he had an interview, I think, in the early 80s. The active measures that the KGB engaged in. Where do you think they get these? And again, there's nothing new under the sun, so they continue to use the same propaganda, the same principles to demoralize and destabilize civilizations, and they've done this from the beginning of time. So don't think that we're some unique just because we have all this, we're so cosmopolitan, we're so smart, we have all this technology. That it doesn't mean anything. If there are UFOs, I believe there's this superior technology out there. Here we are, still being held back, if you will, and we're not being told the truth. I think that's really why Jesus said, "You shall know the truth." You shall know the truth that He is God in flesh incarnate, that He is the only begotten Son of God. And I think when you finally realize that all this other stuff is it is BS. It's all predicated on lies. Jesus said there's no truth in the devil, that he is the father of lies. So if it all comes from him, then God really is the way to the truth, because he's the truth. And most importantly, he is the one that has set up the guardrails in our relationships, our lives. Simplified, the 10 Commandments, the moral construct, the moral laws that say this is the way you're supposed to live because this is the way that I've designed you. When you live outside of those constructs, i.e., you think you can be a furry because that's what you think you are. You're a cat or a tiger. Or you're a man when you're really a woman, or vice versa, or something in between that. This is what happens. I said it's always a dead end. It never ends well.
It's the moral degradation of this country and this world. This is Satan's playground right now. That he owns this, where we live right now in this physical space, but he loses every time in the spiritual space. Keep that in mind.
That's right.
As you go through life, and this is what the progressive, these perverted notions about children. They want to normalize pedophilia. They're bringing these kids into this, exposing them to radical ideas about their sexuality. They're exposing them to pornography. They want to get them used to being used and seen as sexual objects. This moral decay, these the filth waves that are pounding against the foundation of our country are going to eat it away until we make a stand as Americans and just say, we've had enough of this.
Yeah.
We're kowtowing to like 0.25% of the population that has this gender dysphoria. We're pushing the gay agenda as far as we can. It's out of control. And when you have drag queens twerking in front of kids during story time, exposing their genitals, marital aids being passed around and used as, ring toss and all this, it's incredibly sick. So, I mean, I think once we get our moral hat screwed on our head correctly and just say, we're not going to tolerate this anymore. These kids are not going to be exposed to this. Now, the machine is quite huge, but if I had children today, they wouldn't be anywhere near any kind of structured schools. Sorry, I'll teach them myself, or I'll get with my neighbors, and we'll have school in a garage or something, and we'll do something.
Well, homeschool for sure, and that's what I said earlier. I said that pride, one of the seven deadly sins, but that's what got the devil in trouble, was it not? Pride. So when you think about when you act that way, pride, deceit, lies, it's of the devil, and that concept where you break away from the social norms, if you will. So education, especially. So whether that's elementary all the way up through high school, you homeschool or you pull your students, and I'm seeing it even at the university level. It's just as bad there. We talked about this yesterday, Al. You go pay $18,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a semester. I don't care where you're going, how prestigious the university or school is. I guarantee you they're indoctrinating your children. I guarantee it. And I have examples of a few professors recently that it's come to my attention. I'm like, wow, how did those people ever get in? Well, it's like it's not a big club. It's a small club. And they're able to have influence over most of the population because they don't want anyone standing up to contest them. God forbid someone actually stand their ground and call it out for what it is. But listen, do what's right and let God handle all the other circumstance, all the fallout for your decision to stand up and to speak the truth in a very tactful, honest, loving way. If more of us do just that, are we going to catch flack? Oh, you damn right we are. Yeah, prepare for an onslaught. But as Al said, I think we're looking at a very small portion of the overall population here in the United States, I'm speaking. But when finally we put on our moral hats and go, enough is enough, then maybe we'll start to change it. Remember, revolutions, it's not like this whole big, mass of people. It's instigated. Go back and study the Bolshevik revolution. How did that start? Who were these people funding them? It's not always what you're told. Sometimes it just takes a small little spark to kindle, that revolution, to make it appear to be, oh yeah, this is all these people wanted it. They're steering you in the direction they want you to go. And so don't be afraid. Don't be muffled. Again, for evil to flourish, good men, good women will do nothing. So do something. Make a stand. Do it today. I'll give you the last word, Al.
Just want to mention just one thing. There's a real push, I don't know if people know what the Daily Wire is, but I guess Candace Owens, who's a black journalist, recently was fired or left the Daily Wire as a commentator on Today's Life. But the people that own that are Jewish. So she used a couple terms about she's not going to support genocide, no matter where it is, and she signed a couple of Twitter posts with the words "Christ is King." Now, I have no problem with that, and I don't see where any Jewish person would, be absolutely totally tipped over on full tilt. They saw those words, but it is being painted and used now by progressives as anti-Semitic language. So I just ordered my Christ is King hat. I'll leave it at that.
Well, again, I believe that this two-camp system, the more that I see it, I clearly see how they play this game. And as I mentioned within the church, a lot of our brothers and sisters have been fooled to think that the modern-day Israel, the nation that was created, 48, go back and study the Balfour Doctrine. And if you're familiar with the Red Shield family, the Rothschilds, go back and study at the turn of the 19th and the 20th century, leading up to the 20th century, what these people were trying to accomplish in Palestine, by the way. And what we have been, what I failed to recognize or understand is that I always equated that the Hebrews described in the Bible, God's people, were the Jews that have settled in Israel today. But the more that I study, and again, biblically, I'm starting to recognize that I was way off the mark on this. This isn't anti-Semitic. This isn't anti-anything. This is speaking truth. And the reality is there are good people that are caught in the crossfire as a result of some very small minority, dubious people that have been basically foiling us with these insidious plans that have been hatched for a long time, by the way. They don't happen. They are in it for the long haul. 20 years, 40 years, 60 years is nothing to these folks. They've been doing it since the beginning of time. Now, it sounds mysterious and strange when I bring this stuff up, but all you have to do is go back and study history. And you go, wow, okay, maybe there's something happening here. But the neat thing is when evil people try to accomplish whatever their agenda or their goal is, you always notice that even through the difficult times, and you always find a little glimmer of hope. And I think that's where God's working, is he's working everything together for good, for those that love him, for those that know him. That's Romans chapter 8. You're familiar with that. So God's still at work. And even though that we believe that, oh yeah, Israel, we got to stand with Israel, I'm not suggesting that we don't. I'm saying don't buy in to the propaganda, and especially if you're a Christian, just because you're going to stand. And I'll use another example politically. When I was younger, I said, oh, we've got to stand for a particular political family. Maybe for you it was Nixon. I almost said Reagan, but I didn't. Whether it was, it could be Reagan. Maybe it was Reagan. Maybe it's the Bush family or some other, dynasty. I believe we've been buying a lot of lies for a long time. And to my buddy Al's point is, one of the things, once we are able to look at, kind of the truth of what's transpiring here, then maybe we can look in the mirror and say, hey, I think maybe what we need to do is reevaluate our strategy on this. And that's not being anti-Semitic or racist or against a particular group of people. But I think we've got to be very careful that we're just going along because somebody told us that's what we need to go along with. And that's geopolitical, that's faith-based, that's a lot. So we probably need to be questioning a lot more. And I know that was a long rant, but I had to kind of get that off my chest, because a lot of people, when they see what's going on in the Middle East, they want to be, again, divided in the two-camp system. I'm with Palestine. I'm with Israel. Listen, I think that's unfortunate. Are bad things happening to good people? Yes. We're called to love our neighbors as ourselves. And so whether it's someone that's an Arab, a Palestinian, someone that's I want to say, I'll use the terms, quote, Jewish, because it may not be ethnic, a Hebrew from a biblical perspective, but they might be associated as someone they're an Israeli. It's really confusing, but you got to go and study it. Are you still there, Al?
Yeah, I'm here, boss. I appreciate what you said there. Absolutely. I'm not choosing any camp either, but I am totally against bombing innocent people. I don't care if they're harboring, terrorists on the ground. You can't just level buildings. You can't, use drones to blow up people for. It absolutely devastates me to think about it.
Well, I don't understand why we would do that. I mean, so we watched the Russians be unsuccessful in Afghanistan. We went in and pretty much did the same thing, and then we had to blame it all on Bin Laden, CIA construct. Anyway, why all of a sudden we can just send bombs and missiles into anything, Syria? It doesn't matter. Fill in the blank. Look at those people here in the United States that grow up in the drug-infested areas like you just in Philadelphia or Chicago or L.A. And, do you think those people had a choice? They're unfortunately caught in the crossfire. And it's whether it's a skirmish or a campaign or a war, or if it's on the streets of San Francisco, man.
Right.
These people, unfortunately, didn't get a vote. And it's sad. And so with what Candace said, I'm the same way. I don't want to... I think we got to get back. I'm not saying we're going to, hold hands and sing Kumbaya. That's not going to happen. But we need to do what's right. And it starts with you, and it starts with me, brother.
Right. Absolutely. Agreed. Hey, we'll end on a higher note here. The Powerball fantasy tonight is 1.09 billion. So I'm sure Hunter Biden's got his cash down on that deal. Wouldn't be surprised if he won it, if you know what I mean.
Hey, well, let's split it and see what happens.
That's it. Good luck to everybody.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in to the Common Ground Radio Show, everybody. For Big Al and the Zapper, that's going to do it for this Wednesday edition, 3 April 2024. We covered a lot today. Thanks so much for tuning in. Again, we'll see you next week right here on the Common Ground Radio Show. Until then, make sure that you go check out all of our latest archives and the podcast on thejeffzappshow.com. We'll see you next time.